Hello and welcome to the official podcast for the Glasgow Comic Page, where we talk about the latest comics, movies, television, and other pieces of nerd culture. I'm your host for this episode, Massimo Costelli, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Alan, the man who hates everything toys.
All lies, but yes.
Only Zack Snyder properties, it's fine. And on today's episode, we'll be talking about everyone's favourite table and dragons. And we'll kind of be talking about the basics of D&D, how to get into it, what the hobby's all about, and why everyone, honestly, should at least give it a shot. Join us today on our D&D special are our guests, Val and Daisy, who will be promoting their D&D podcast. They're not guests, they're not ghosts. It's guests, Val and Daisy, who will be promoting their D&D podcast that has partnered with. So if you guys would like to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about the podcast that we'll be speaking about later on.
So hi, I'm Val. I'm 26 years old. Irrelevant, but yeah, still. We are planning to start. I'm sorry, I got it.
You're fine. Go for it.
No, Daisy.
That sounded so good.
Yeah.
Get some new people.
That sounds great.
Nice.
So do this. I assume you guys are also, you've at least had a little bit of experience with D&D before. It's not an entirely new concept for you, so how long have you guys actually been playing the game for?
Stop.
For me, I don't know exactly how it started, to be honest, but I think it was like 7 years ago. I started playing RPG games, not just tabletop in general, and I really liked dressing out my characters, for example, Dragon Age at the time. And a friend of mine suggested to try RPG tabletops like Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons, and it wasn't that frequently at the time, but after a few years, I think it became a time now.
So did you start with the computer games first, then Dragon?
Yeah, the opposite of how people started back then, I guess, but that's how it.
And now it's like hooked, yeah.
I love the different experiences from both of you, like the idea of how one of you got roped into it through video games, and the other one kind of just got roped into it through obviously like kind of live action Critical Role stuff. See if you were like, and this will probably be kind of the big question for a lot of people, is that see if you're talking about how to get into, and someone who's a complete novice came up to you and asked you, how would you get into it? What would you say are kind of some key aspects of the game? Maybe how suggest a kind of a good entry point.
I think that it's practically 80% rules, but I believe that.
As I say, what do you mean by roleplay?
Well, it's a difficult topic to explain, but even if you don't like to roleplay and you're shy, you don't have to do weird accents to enjoy the game. I mean, but I'm pretty sure that after a while you're gonna be more comfortable around your group. You will be able to start. And for me, roleplaying is becoming someone else for a day, and try to overcome, find creative solutions.
Have some fun.
Yeah, it's like the old. Like,
I love that. I love the idea of
So
just
for those
becoming a person.
For those at home, like what is?
oh, a tiefling. I it's decided to do.
Well, tiefling basically is tieflings cannot produce themselves, but they can be born after a demon or a fiend seduced a human, or if you make a pact.
Ah, so devil person.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. They get a lot of stick.
I assume because they've got maybe horns and stuff like that, or like very kind
Yeah,
of demonic
right.
creatures. Yeah.
And a tail.
Oh, amazing. Actually, on the subject of races, it's probably a good idea if we kind of explain maybe, because obviously, for those who aren't maybe familiar with it, I know I am, and you two are, and Alan is at least slightly, but for those at home with it. So the way how it breaks down is it's a class system and race system. For the game, so could you maybe give the viewers at home kind of maybe a kind of not super in depth, but kind of a broad overview of that kind of entails when you're actually playing the game and how to and what the different races.
There are so many race shoes now, and you can also not exactly make your own, but there are homebrew versions. But when it comes to character creation, for me, I always advise people make a character that they can relate to at first, and after a few months, you'll be able to differentiate characters. But when you first starting playing, just pick something that represents you. For example, I always play a druid or a ranger, and definitely an elf. And some of the races and the classes gives you extra traits. It's like, if you're a barbarian, you're stronger than other people, or if you're a druid, you're wiser. So it's basically like that.
I was just gonna say no. It's you're right. It's the Daisy going to be said. It is the kind of truest form of escapism then of being able to be all these different characters with people who maybe have giant rippling muscles when you're like me who's kind of a skinny, slightly chubby guy, with with not a lot of strength. But I always find that interesting is that's the kind of thing of taking on these personas. And do you think that's why it's maybe become so popular in recent because it allows people to put themselves out there in a way that a lot of people haven't allowed themselves to do in the past?
Oh, definitely. I mean, like cats. Just something like years ago, I never would have been hidden.
Nice. So it kind of brought you out of your shell a little bit. It's a slippery slope, right?
It really is, yeah.
So you start on, a cartoon or a comic book, and the next thing you know, all your money is being spent on it, all your free time is being spent on it. Most of the people you speak to are speaking about it, or you're thinking about it. It's just actually an adult.
Oh yeah,
Oh my God.
no, so it's...
My mom thinks I'm a cult member as well. It's insane. She thinks I'm doing rituals and stuff, and I really hope that this whole thing and how popular the game it became will change the perspective of people and make her.
Your mom's
Pardon?
so that your mom's less worried about you, basically.
Yeah.
I was going to ask actually as well on the kind of the idea of like you're sinking in so much money into it. Is D&D a very expensive hobby to get into? Because I know there's like loads of like supplementary books and stuff, and you have like dice you can buy and stuff like that. So is it a very expensive hobby, or can like everyone get into it?
To be honest.
Yeah, definitely. If you just start with a player painting them.
Or even buy art inspired by your characters, because you can actually do that now. But yeah, basically, our dice going out of hand, I guess. But you don't need anything except a pencil and a passion display and a group of friends. That's the most.
I was going to say you need other people, right?
Yeah.
I would say that's probably the kind of one of the things. The best part of the game is probably like an interesting social aspect that comes with the game. Is it's a shared adventure, a shared experience. And in saying that, does it take up a lot of your time? Do you guys like play a lot per week? Is there a set day, or like do you guys play lots since COVID and stuff? Is like a lot of games that are still going on, or how's that worked out for you?
Well, for me, right now, because I work full time, I don't have the time to do that anymore. So I just try and have one day a week to play. And it's not just Dungeons and Dragons, it's also Vampire the Masquerade, the tabletop version of it. But when I was younger, I used to do it twice a week for 5+ hours. And we always gathered at my house and we were playing and eating and drinking and having fun together. But right now, we go quite difficult. And also the fact that I moved to Scotland is another thing, because I'm not from here.
I was going to say with that accent,
I'm from Greece.
and you came here.
Right?
You came here.
I love the weather.
I was going to say obviously. Yeah, I was going to say as well, like on the kind of idea of like you've obviously moved from a different, and I don't know if Daisy, if you are Glasgow based, or is there lots of like before COVID, I would say, was there lots of like safe spaces to play D&D, and if that makes kind of nerd friendly spaces within the areas that you live in, is that like a big thing or?
I cannot answer that because I moved here 4 months ago, so.
I mean, I just bought my friend.
Nice. You say you're a dungeon master, so what is the dungeon master?
So essentially you want...
So the dungeon master... Oh, sorry, carry on.
Well, basically the dungeon master, I guess, but because I've tried to do it in the past, it's so stressful, and you need to have the attitude of improvise, adapt, overcome. And it's not that easy when you're a control freak and you get mad at people when it's there.
Kind of like the...
Yeah, because even if you have planned something for hours and hours and prepared it, people are going to choose something else to do, and they're going to just ruin everything. In a good way, though.
yeah, we used to torture our dungeon master. It was an actual about it like 30 years later. So
I'll say
come up with
that.
all sorts of stuff.
I was gonna say, yeah, like the idea of like having to adapt on the fly to improvise must be like one of these skills that is like so valuable when you're playing D&D, even as like a player and as a DM. Like, do you have to like, kind of be from a creative background to kind of get into the game in that sense, or would you also kind of say that like even if you're not super creatively inclined, that it's still a really fun game to play?
Oh, definitely.
I think that's how the game originally started, wasn't it? It was like from like a tabletop military reenacting battles with miniatures. Guy Gygax made up a set of rules to like a story game as well, which had like personal combat rather than group combat kind of thing, and that's how it's developed over the years.
Yeah, and it's just sort of progressed.
So now you could folk run about as tiefling bards and dwarven clerics and whatnot, just
Yeah, exactly. And just
making up all sorts.
I mean, that's what I was gonna say is the idea of like making up all these characters. Like for myself, like I'm in a long running campaign that we've been doing for almost 2 years, like once a week, and a cleric. And like my first exposure to the game was through like watching like YouTubers and stuff. Would you say that's maybe your guys' experience as well? Like the big shift was like, as you said, Daisy, stuff like Critical Role being massively like influential and like taking like a dusty old board game and then kind of modernizing it.
Well, I don't think that the game has changed in any way. The only thing that has changed is basically the world. But definitely one of the biggest reasons that it became a thing again, I think it's definitely Critical Role. So many players gathered together. You can't go wrong with that. It's kind of
So, what kind of in your game is it a home campaign when you something's made up themselves, just what that means, or is it more one of the like Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk or any of those ones? Would you use Val? Start with you.
well, I'm not DMing. I tried fast and it didn't go well. So I'm
Well,
just
even the game you're playing,
pardon.
the game that you're currently playing in just now, like as a player rather than a dungeon master, is it a homebrew game or is it a ready-made world?
Yeah, because the guy that is DMing most of the time is trying to, and you can definitely do that. There are also adventure books, like a structure of how the world can be, and you can adapt on that and maybe be creative and do things that.
So take elements from like published adventures and things like that and put your own setting and things, yeah.
Yeah.
And what about you, Daisy?
I'm not very
Sorry.
deep in.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot you did say that, and I'm like, just rubbing salt in the wind, like, oh, what are you going through? Nothing, thanks.
Don't worry, we're gonna change that. We're gonna change that.
Nice.
I was gonna say yeah. Exactly, Alan. You're bringing people together by insulting people one small insult at a time. But like obviously for yourself, like because you're not in a game, do you still feel like you're in touch with D&D kind of culture, if that makes sense? Like by watching stuff like Critical Role, like are you still able to talk to people who maybe are playing in campaigns about D&D, even though you're not one yourself?
Oh, definitely ourselves, and I love hearing about models they've paid off and nerd out with. It's one.
So would you guys say social media is a big part in kind of like how the spread of the game is? Like
Yeah, definitely.
I will say that is a good thing though as well, that like kind of like big massive TV shows as well are kind of incorporating this kind of like board game, or sorry, not board game, tabletop game. I guess like if we're kind of talking about, because I know we've talked about character creation, and if you were kind of to say to someone like what it is, like like, and obviously you said like obviously being like a person is what makes it so freeing to like role play and stuff like that. But would you say there's any times where like it's been fun to do like not even just the role play, but like the puzzle solving? I know you mentioned earlier on a little bit about kind of like more talking about the tactical aspects. Would you say that those things play as big a part as role play, or would you say role's kind of more present a game?
I think it depends on the DM as well, and because there are so many people out there that really enjoy making the game harder than it is with putting riddles and all that stuff, and it becomes more complex. But I think that the fun part of the game personally is role playing, but definitely fighting monsters and dragons getting into dungeons can be fun as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's nice to have like people. It's wonderful to
Run!
yeah. First spot call, run and hide.
So I think.
So how long?
Yeah. Sorry, Alan, you go. I'm sorry. Go.
No, I insist.
Oh, I
I
insist.
insist, Massimo, you go.
All I was going to say is that like I think we've covered like a lot of the basics of what people want to know. Is there anything else you guys would probably say to people who who are thinking about doing it just before we move on to maybe kind of interview section of this podcast to talk about your specific project, who are like kind of what words of wisdom to people who are trying to get into the game?
I would say what did I live up to?
Have you got anything about
So just like-
Val?
I don't know. I'm not gonna say that I'm an advocate for that exactly, but I just kind of am because I try to persuade people to try D&D, and I have done it so many times in the past, and it worked. And the only thing that I say is just stating the fact that D&D helped me overcome my social anxiety and other stuff I was going through when I was younger. But I try to persuade people, there are dragons in the game and you can use magic. So I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, who doesn't love dragons? Who doesn't love magic? Also sounds like you're a D&D pusher, do you know what I mean? Like just you're, come on, all your friends are trying it. Play!
I feel like that probably is a big step as well of having to like maybe kind of push people towards doing it, because I feel like people are very hesitant because of kind of I guess the stigma or like, that used to be around D&D, and probably like forcing your friends to do it is probably maybe one of the only ways you can get people to play sometimes.
I'm not forcing exactly, I'm just stating facts, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, just fall.
They didn't jump, you just pushed them, don't worry about it. With that being said, I think it'd be a good time to kind of move on to the specific project you guys on here to talk about, lab, and that would be a D&D kind of centric podcast that you are partnering with BGCP to produce and put out there. So just could you maybe explain if it's going to be kind of like a long running campaign? Is it going to be one shots, or is it specifically going to be maybe kind of more of a discussion show similar to this current podcast that we've got going on at the moment?
We the right direction of the podcast, and I don't know if I will be able to meet people's expectations because it's a tough crowd out there. But I think that a casual chat between the people, having a laugh and learning together, is something that we aspire to do.
Yeah, we're sort of, which is probably a better way to, if you're like Ron and you've got like 100.
Yeah, and also inspiring people to start playing. Our main goal here. We're not experts ourselves. I mean, for me, as I said, it was only 6 or 7 years. But we're trying to keep up with everything that we discuss, D&D news, what is happening, they're releasing, and all that. It's going to be fun. And
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, definitely.
I think
Yeah,
it's I think it's going to be a very interesting kind of change of pace from what I maybe usually listen to podcast wise. Because like as being someone who's familiar with the game, I feel like it's very good that you guys are kind of going out your way and maybe trying to reach people anxious or not super like maybe shy who don't want to. And maybe listen to you guys' podcast could help them kind of make that step into maybe making friends with people who want to play D&D. And with that being said, actually, I know you said specifically yourself you had like loads of role to catch up on. Like, is there any maybe kind of format you're going to take from like other like popular kind of D&D, kind of maybe incorporate into your own thing? Obviously, it'll be your own separate thing, but like, is there any draw influence?
I think that there are so many great videos. There's great content on your channel. So maybe similar to that. But as Daisy said, we're huge fans of the role, and I think that this is going to be a main topic, maybe.
I was just going to say, with obviously, if you're going to make Critical Role a main topic of the podcast or in some like maybe discussion and stuff, do you think that like sit and watch Critical Role? Because obviously it's a long period of time, but you think maybe that's like probably a good way to tell people, or introduce people to watch something like Critical that maybe could like be kind of paired with other kind of aspects.
Definitely, but for me, the best way to get into the game is joining a community and finding a group, and that will make everything so or try to read and memorize all the books. But it's a great start. It's a great way to start getting involved.
Yeah, critical, like the practical side, watching.
I was actually going to ask as well. I've heard through the grapevine for the big boss of BGCP that you're kind of going for maybe an all-female centric kind of like rotating hosts kind of thing for your podcast. Is that true? Is you going to kind of go for like all girls? Was there like any particular reason why you decided I know obviously it's like the idea it does feel like D&D kind of male orientated, but was that like that maybe play a part in deciding to go all female roster?
I think we keep waiting for each other to talk. It's so nice. We're so close. It's like silent. Cast considered as like a boys' nerd, not to target.
I was going to actually say as well, like, because I know both of you are writers for the site as well, aren't you? Am I getting that right? Yeah. Would you guys maybe try and incorporate into your own podcast that talks about maybe the reviews of stuff that you're doing that week? Like, I'm assuming it won't just be 40 minutes an hour straight of D&D, intersperse some stuff like the reviews and the book.
Yeah, I really hope so. One which is like the jumped on it. Yeah,
it's a good book, right?
Game saving.
Yeah, and I'm also trying to that is going on. I mean, the books that they're running, and I watched every single episode to campaign, so I'm pretty into it. Most people say I'm obsessed.
Sounds like it.
I don't want to say that. It's not true.
I was also going to say as well, just in the general idea of like if like other stuff like kind of outside of just talking about specifically kind of in that same vein of reviews and stuff. Assumably, like there's like loads of new books and sources coming out from the guys who make D&D Wizards of the Coast. Are you guys going to maybe sitting maybe it makes sense like campaigns or kind of new stuff that comes out? Are you going to cover that sort of news as well? Like, are you going to kind of cover like all the new book releases?
Yeah, I have heard about the new Ravenloft that is coming May 18th. I don't know the date, but I think it's May. They're gonna try to recreate Ravenloft. It's an adventure book, so it's like the main story that you can use and the campaign setting that you can use.
Okay,
So Ravenloft was it's the horror one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
vampires and things.
Vampires, yeah. And it became a thing back in 2000 with Curse of Strahd. It was another adventure book.
I mean,
Yeah, when...
No, yeah, you go. You were speaking there. Go.
I was going to say, like, way back when we started, that was one of the first ones that we box it, and
it's so intense. It's so intense. I don't recommend it to people that are trying to start now playing, but maybe later.
I was going to say as well. Yeah, I've also had some experience with Ravenloft as well because that was like the third or fourth, like kind of book campaign that was run that I was in, and just that as you said, it's very intense, and like anything can happen. And I feel like that's very much like one of those things of D&D is that it can be at one point very very mellow, and then it can just ramp up to something ridiculously.
Yeah, for me, I have a really bad memory of playing Curse of Strahd. There was an incident in my house while we were playing, and I couldn't sleep for 2 days.
What happened?
I don't know if I can explain it, but the DM had a health issue while DMing because we were drinking wine and we had like low light, and it was a Halloween themed session, and it became so intense for him. Well, kind of fainted, but yeah.
I mean, there you go. You've heard it here first, folks. D&D, the game that makes people faint from heart rate. But I think
don't
that's
drink a DM.
Don't drink a DM. That's it. I think that's just like a very like interesting thing as well as like your kind of personal story of how intense like a game that involves rolling dice and fictional role playing can be. Like for myself, like a kind of intense situation I found myself in like a few sessions ago in my campaign was that I was fighting off like 2 giant creatures and I was possibly going to die, and it was also like I just didn't want my character to die, and I could feel myself sweating. I could feel myself, and it's incredible that these like moments like come up and they make like they make you feel.
You have no idea how much I cried for my character. I mean, she was a druid. She was a half dryad druid, and the DM burned her tree, and she didn't have a soul for a while. But she she met a girl, one of our players' character, uh, a monk named May, and she became best friends. And the bond that they had in game became a real thing for me as well in the
Oh.
end. And that's something that I always wanted to say out loud. And I know that it sounds weird, but D&D can make you more social. And I'm so grateful for the people that I met through it.
It's a beautiful thing.
I would so yeah. I hope that your podcast can at least do the same for people as well. Like maybe you guys can start your own wee community around it through like just talking about D&D, and hopefully that will bring more people together. Like you said, you know, D&D brings people together. And I think that that's probably like one of the biggest positives, and I'm sure that you guys would agree that from D&D becoming the mainstream, as I said, people to come out their shells, and that is
It's
like
like
therapy, free therapy.
yeah, people in the USA, they use it for shy children to open up. So it's not just a thing that I'm saying, it's real. It's happening as a therapy.
I think that's us just about done with all the questions that we have. Alan, have you got anything else you want to add, or ladies, do you have anything else you want to add as well? Maybe reviews of social medias you want to plug or anything that sort of way.
Doing that polite thing again.
I'm doing the same thing as well.
Wonderful.
And I always say definitely check out videos at Geek and Sundry on YouTube or Twitch. You can find a lot of great streams as well and podcasts.
That's phenomenal. That's good. I'm glad that you guys are able to kind of plug your own things, and then I'm wishing the best success for this podcast, and I hope it goes really well. So I'm going to wrap things up. My name has been Massimo Costelli. I've been joined by my co-host Alan, and obviously our wonderful guests, wonderful guests Val and Daisy. If you guys want the latest comic book news, reviews, and all other sort of nerdy things, you can find us on bgc.co.uk, bigglasshowcomic.page.co.uk. You can find us on Twitter with the I think it's at BGC, and also find us on Facebook with the similar kind of socials. You can also find us on Discord if you want to join the Discord chat and kind of talk about all the latest news with other fans of this. Thank you for listening, and I hope that everyone has a great day and that the pandemic isn't hard. Just try to spread positivity out in the universe. Right, bye guys. Thanks for listening.